Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the electrical systems in FIRST Robotics and how not exactly how we wire everything. This is just a brief overview of everything in here so you know what everything is and a little bit more in depth than what the slideshow says. So there's three categories. We got general electronics, which we're always going to have. We also got motors, which you're going to have on your bot. And then pneumatics we haven't had it for the past 2 years, I believe, but once in a blue moon, we put pneumatics on our bot, so we'll go over that too. But let's start with general cable management here. So these are basically wiring diagrams for the bot. I think this is the older one because it has the older radio. Now we have this radio. I don't actually have one of those with me right now because they're out of stock and we desperately need one. But hopefully, by the time you start wiring stuff up, we'll have one of these. But we can skip the wiring video. It's kind of long and boring, but first off, we got the Robo-Rio. Now, this is the thing you're going to be programming. I have one right here. This is the older version. In this image, we have the Robo-Rio 2.0, and we just covered the ports with electrical tape because when we're working on the robot, sometimes metal shavings get in here, and then we can fry it, and it's not good. So we cover it up when we're not using it and when it's on the bot itself. But you got a few different ports here. I'm going to take off the tape just so we can see what everything is. And it says this in the in the image too. Just got your DIO ports, PWM control, power, and some of the ports we never use, but you can use them. So we can start out with the power. The power is in the corner here, and this goes to the power distribution board. But yeah, you got your power, USB-B cables, USB-A or not cables, but USB-B ports, USB-A ports, Ethernet port. You can use these to communicate with it. You can put cameras on the USB ports if you want, or maybe like a Raspberry Pi or something to further control it. That's usually used for Spark Maxes or other CAN devices like the Pigeon, which is like a gyro on the ROMIs. But that's for encoders or for pigeons or stuff like that. And that's you put it in a daisy chain around, so it's a lot less wiring than wiring everything into your digital ports or everything in your PWM ports. So that's pretty important to know. I don't use the I2C or the RS-232 that often, if ever, but it's the communication ports. Your DIO ports, that's your digital input-output ports. That's pretty obvious. You use those on the ROMIs. RSL, that's your blinky, so your, what's it called, a robot signal light. That is this on the robot. This will blink when it's enabled, so people know, step back, it's a little bit dangerous. It's solid when it's disabled. Relays are kind of like digital output pins, but they're meant for relays, so I think there's a little bit more power to them. And relays are basically switches. Analog in, that's for certain sensors. I never really use them because we have CAN devices. PWM, that's for motor control. Also don't really use them because we, again, have CAN stuff. But it could also be used for servos, which is what I've mainly used it for on here. And then we got some signal lights, power, status, radio, communication mode, RSL, all that. If you don't have a blinky, this will be your backup blinky integrated into the board. And then your reset and user buttons down here. That's pretty much it for the Rio. We mount it with dual lock usually onto like a piece of polycarbonate or something, but that's pretty much it for the Robo Rio. Open mesh radio we don't use anymore. I wonder, okay, the other radio is not in here. But what the radio basically does is it communicates. We have a radio connected to the laptop that we use, and that's where like in a match. But here at North, we have a radio connected to our laptop that acts as an access point, and then that connects from our laptop to that radio, and then the access point connects to the robot's radio, which then is plugged into the Robo Rio, if that makes sense. It's a kind of a lot. It's a big process, but we basically have two radios communicating with each other, and that's how we send over the data. So there's a few different modes. Not all this is outdated, but you can look into some documentation on the other one. Robot signal light, it's the blinky. It's wired just like in the image. Just signals what state the robot's in, basically. Power distribution hub. So this is the newer PDP or power distribution panel or whatever it's called. Looks like this. So here you plug in your Spark Maxes, I believe, into these ports or any other large thing that needs high amounts of current. So we have, these are 40 amp fuses. You can put 30 amp or 20 amp fuses and then program the board to whatever you need it to be. If you need less current, we got these down here. There's a couple 15 and a couple 10 amp fuses in here. And that's for things like actually this is for the pneumatic stuff, but also your voltage regulator module. I'm not sure where I put that, but it's for your voltage regulator modules, so your LEDs and your Robo Rio. USB-C, that's how you connect to it to flash it. You have CAN things on here too if you wanted to hook that up into the CAN thing. I'm pretty sure we do that. And then this here, this is going to your battery. So this is your battery, big chunky lead acid battery. This will go through a switch into here, and just open that up. You get your battery voltage, and then the same thing on the other side. So this is basically what's distributing all of your power to all of your systems. Okay. Voltage regulator module. I have no idea. I know I had it, and it has disappeared on me. But what it basically does, it powers all of your low current things, LEDs, stuff like that. I'm blanking right now, but little microcontrollers. It powers the radio. Yeah, the radio is a big one for that. So we sometimes put 2 of these on the bot just because we need more ports, because amperage is important on here. 12 volts and 5 volts. We just split between the 2. So that's what that is. Okay, so now we're going to get into motors. We have basically, well, there's 2 different types of motors. First off, let me grab these. We mostly use Spark Maxes to control the motors, but you need to program the Spark Maxes to do certain versions. So, Neo brushless motor. This is the main motor you're going to be using, and it's pretty much our chunkiest motor we have. This one doesn't have a gearbox on it like this one does here, but the gearbox just basically changes the amount of torque it outputs and the speed it outputs. So it just goes through a series of gears and changes the gear ratio to what we need it to be. This is 25 to 1. Ooh, sorry. And these don't have any on them. But this one is a high torque, a little bit lower speed, but still pretty high speed. This is the most powerful motor you're going to be able to get. And this is what we usually use for the drivetrain. So what we actually use to move the entire bot with the wheels. So this is what moves the wheels on the swerve modules, or for differential drive or arcade drive, whatever you want to call it. Neo 550s. This one's on a gearbox. But these are high-speed motors. We usually use them for flywheels, which is like a ball shooter. You need the wheels to shoot the ball to spin as fast as possible to get the ball to fly as far as you want. And these are also brushless, so they're also going to be used for the Spark Maxes. So that's what those are for. And then, I don't know if it's on here, but we also have sim motors or brushed motors. These are cheaper motors. Doesn't sound too good, but they're cheaper motors. You need to program brushed into here. They're still pretty powerful. This one is probably a more of a torquey one, but if we don't need to if we don't really need to control the speed of it too much, and we don't need to get a ton of information back for autonomous, we can use these, and they're cheaper too, which helps save money for the bot. So we got those. Spark maxes, so yeah, this is what's used to control it. You can take a look at the LED patterns. Like when they're plugged in, the LEDs will blink certain colors depending on their status. So check that out if they're blinking weird colors. And then you got your reset button on there. And this is for limit switches. So built-in switches. How do I say that? So you can take a look at the software for it. This is where you download it. But in here, if we go to Rev Hardware, you can set up limits. So if the thing's moving down and you want it to stop at a certain angle, you can put a little switch there, and if it hits the switch, it'll automatically stop that on the motor controller itself instead of like to the Rio where you put it in the code, which actually saves a lot of time. Also, brushed motors are going to have 2 wires. Brushless are going to have 3. That's just, you have a signal one on here, and then you got your power. And this just has power. So you can control the brushless better. A little bit better than the brushed. But you can go into here, you can hook up your Spark Maxes and program them to whatever you need them to do. That's with the Rev Hardware client. So you can take a look at that. Okay, pneumatics. Pneumatics we haven't used for a while, but I'll still go over it. So pneumatics is basically taking these pistons. Some people call them cylinders. I call them pneumatic pistons. Whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter. But basically, it's just a thing that comes out when you put air in it, and when air goes out, it goes down. You can see if I plug the hole here, I can't pull it out until I let go, and then I can. And then also I can't push it in very, very well unless I let go of that, and then I can. So if you put air into it, it'll push it up. You get it. Next, control module. So that's the here's the voltage regulator module. Here's the pneumatics control module. So this is how we wire everything together. So we have solenoids that need to go into that. So this is basically just how you wire everything up so you can program the solenoids when to fire, or when the pistons when to fire. So that's how you get it to move. And then we have air compressors, which basically pump air into our tanks. Here's an example of that. Usually, I'm not 100% sure on this, but we pump up the air before matches, and then we don't have this on the bot. We might have it on the bot if we need weight for some reason, but we can just put air in the robot, in the tanks, and then do a match and then fill it up after we're done. So the tanks are kind of like a tank of gas. Think about it like that, where it'll run out, but hopefully by the end of the match we'll still have a plenty in there to do whatever we need to do. Because you want high pressure to keep this thing. Because even like I can still push this thing in, but when like the amount of pressure that we put in there, it won't be able to go back at all. So this can lift up anything. Pneumatic pistons, we talked about that. Solenoids, so here's a solenoid. Basically there's little buttons on here so you can do it manually. But when you click one of these buttons or when you program it with the cable onto this thing, it'll fire, which will move this up and down. Basically what it does, it just moves the air to the piston when you need it to. Reservoir, this is what the air tanks look like. They're pretty basic. We usually have 4 or more on the bot. I can't remember the exact number. Maybe we had 6 when my freshman year. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the electrical stuff. That's all you really need to know. A couple extra things, cameras. Sometimes we use USB cameras. Sometimes we use. I'm trying to get the Limelight to work right now, which is vision tracking. So there's April tags on the field, which is basically QR codes. And the robot can figure out its position based on the QR code, which is pretty cool. If we can get that to work, we can do some pretty advanced stuff. Limelights, okay. Radio, that's new. I didn't show that off, but There's new documentation on that. Neopixels, yeah, some LED strips we could put on there to make that look cool. So that could be a fun little project for sophomore or freshman programmers to make like some LED patterns for that. I think that's pretty much it for electronics. Yeah. So if you can get all that down and get some basic skills like soldering or crimping, you'll be a pretty big asset to the team because you can wire up all of this stuff. All right, that's pretty much all I got. Good luck and see ya.